kick off the video proper, I'd just like to do a quick shout out to the two companies that have made this video possible. Firstly, to Sean and the good people of Big CC Racing in Wokingham for entertaining my slightly unusual idea of putting a rally bike on their dyno. They are used to dealing with and tuning and building some amazing 620 horsepower plus drag racing motorcycles. They have a phenomenal range of absolutely mad machines at their workshop, which I got a good tour around. And secondly, to Kove Racing in France for supplying the TRC Enduro ECU and being an all-round great company to deal with. I've asked them questions about the ECU before purchasing. I've made suggestions and asked some more questions following my test, and their response has been brilliant. It's been friendly, it's been professional. They've even made some changes to their website as a consequence, and we'll go into that a bit later. So without further ado, let's check out some dyno runs. I will put up the graphs of all the different runs a bit later, but to give you an overview of this test. So on our best run, the bike made 40.13 wheel horsepower. It made that power in fourth gear, which appeared across the tests to deliver the highest overall power and also reach the highest RPM. Fifth gear appeared to have slightly restricted RPM and the power figure was slightly lower. Sixth gear appeared to be restricted to 8,000 RPM. Across all of the runs that we did with the standard ECU and the standard exhaust, the air-fuel ratio was nominal, so everything was okay there. As you can see from Sean's face in that video clip, unfortunately the TRC ECU doesn't appear to be compatible with the standard exhaust. The overall power was significantly reduced, so it was down at 32.96 wheel horsepower, which is over a 7 horsepower loss versus the standard ECU. The main concern here was the air-fuel ratio got extremely rich. In fact, it went off the scale, so it was under 10, significantly under 10, for most of the rev range. This obviously was causing engine flooding. It was extinguishing the spark, which caused the engine to misfire and again would cause that loss of power. Now, the reason why this shows that the TRC Enduro ECU is not compatible with the standard exhaust with the catalytic converter is there are a number of different areas where this could damage your engine. I mean, short term, you're going to experience increased fuel consumption. You're likely to start fouling spark plugs, so you'll get reduced reliability. The performance we can see is significantly down versus the standard ECU, but also overfueling can cause catalytic converters to overheat, which will lead them to fail early, and it could potentially start causing black smoke, so all of that stuff that you don't want flying out the back of your motorbike. Long term, as well as increased emissions, oil contamination, catalytic converter damage, and carbon buildup within the engine, the main potential issue is washing the bores, so cylinder wall damage. Effectively, the excess fuel can remove the protective film from the cylinder, and that will then increase the likelihood of wear and the risk of scoring, and then you lose compression, and then you lose performance, and then you're looking at an engine rebuild. So I would highly recommend not to run the TRC ECU with the standard exhaust with the catalytic converter. I sent a message over to the folks at Kove Racing in France who supplied the TRC ECU, and they confirmed that it was not designed to be run on the standard exhaust with the standard catalytic converter. They actually sent over the precise details of the exhaust that they used in order to map the bike on that ECU. It's the Arrow full straight through system. I'll leave a link to that in the description down below. And they have since updated their website to make this a little bit more clear. I have seen people on Facebook groups and sort of Kove owner groups saying that they are running the TRC ECU with the standard exhaust and cat. So if you are doing that, please have a think about whether that's a good idea or not, because there is the evidence that I've seen so far suggests that it probably isn't. I will, of course, retest this ECU with the racing exhaust with a decat pipe. I'll also test it with the standard exhaust using the decat pipe from the racing exhaust. And you never know, if I find some extra pennies, I might invest in the Arrow exhaust that the folks at TRC have recommended, and we'll test it with that as well in the future. As I mentioned before, TRC have been great at communicating on this. I highly recommend them as a company to deal with. We tried a couple of other experiments. We wanted to see if there was any restriction in the air intake. So we ran further power runs on the dyno with both the filter removed and then the filter removed and the seat removed. And that did actually have some interesting effects. It didn't make much difference to the TRC Enduro ECU. It would appear all of the restriction there is really in the exhaust. However, for the standard ECU, we actually made a higher peak power figure of 42.81 wheel horsepower, which is a noticeable improvement against the 40.13 wheel horsepower we made with the filter and the seat fitted. You'll also see from the graph there the air-fuel ratio with the seat and the filter removed on the standard ECU was a little bit less rich up at the top end of the RPMs, which shows perhaps there is some performance to be gained from the air filter. And if we take a look at the graph that compares the TRC ECU run with the standard ECU run, you can see that the TRC ECU, the engine is really struggling. It's massively overfueling. It is flooding the engine, and it's struggling to make power very early on in the rev range, and it's starting to misfire and to generally not enjoy life at all. Hence why it's making over 7 horsepower less, and it's not reaching anything like the same peak power. And the area under the curve is significantly smaller. You'd really feel that when riding. So that's it for part 1. Those are the 2 dyno tests I wanted to do before Christmas and before the Great Christmas Escape, which is on the 28th of December. If you haven't got your tickets yet, I think we can all agree the most important thing is that the bike did really well. It survived its afternoon of torture and it's ready to fight another day and take me on some more adventures. In the new year, I'm really looking forward to doing some further tests, retesting the TRC Enduro ECU with an unrestricted exhaust system, and of course, having a look at the Rally ECU to see what difference that makes. I'm also intrigued to find out quite how loud the race exhaust really is. So if you found this interesting or useful, please drop a comment underneath. If you've got any questions or if you've got anything you'd like me to test in the new year, please feel free to suggest it. But in the meantime, everyone have a great Christmas and a happy new year. And I will see you then for some more Kove packed action.